What's up, what's up? It's your girl Hayla, back with my second video. If my voice is a little bit quieter, it's because it's almost 2 a.m. and the household's asleep. But I'm trying to be, semi-consistent, and yeah, here we are. I see you watching and not subscribing. Subscribe. It's free. Subscribe. So my first video was kind of a general get to know me, and some of the Instagram questions I was asked I didn't actually put in that video because I thought it needed a separate one. Otherwise it's like a little all over the place with the different subjects. So today I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of background story, call it a story time, about my relationship. And I don't want it to be like, so this is what I was asked, and then, you know what I mean? I'm trying to have more of a conversation today. So I'm gonna put the questions that I was asked here when they're relevant. But aside from that, I wanna give you guys a backstory and then work our way forward, okay? So today's video is all about my relationship and finishing off Instagram questions that I thought wouldn't be relevant for our first video. But instead of it being like question answer, I wanted to give you guys like a backstory, I guess like a story time. And then we can go into some of the questions from before, but I'm not gonna read them off. I'm just gonna put them here so you guys can see it. Here we go. Most people know that I am married. The first video on here was the day we got engaged. It's actually pretty long, but I mean, to take it down and edit it when it was like given to us as a gift that people even recorded it. So forgive the length. Let's go back in time. So my husband's name is Daud. We met when we were teenagers in Djibouti. The way we met is through family, because his mom and my mom knew each other from years before and they were friends. And we all went to Djibouti on vacation for my aunt's wedding. I had to think about that because there was like back-to-back weddings always there. But yeah, so my aunt was getting married and his family and my family from Canada all went at the same time. To be honest, when I first met him, the most annoying person, the most. Like, I actually avoided his space because he was like, those mad, immature kids, but he also had like this toxic masculinity. So fast forward, I went back like 4 years later and he was a completely different person. Like, not only physically, but like his thought process, his energy, like it was a huge shift. So we got cool, and then our families took a trip, like road trip throughout different places in Ethiopia that year. It was a dope trip, and it actually like brought us closer together as homies, strictly homies. Yeah, so then we just kept in touch from built a friendship, and he became one of my really good, we called each other best friends. So in 2018, when I went back, I had my trip kind of planned out. We had said from the beginning of my trip, like near the end, let's make sure we block out some time so we can do another like road trip, since the last one was so memorable. So that was like a pact kind of that we made. Long story short, we had really bad summers and we were determined to change that around for both of our sakes. He asked me to extend my stay. At this point, I had a shitty summer and I could not wait to leave and start like career hunting, starting. He was dead set on making sure that I had a dope trip so I don't leave with just whatever happened. And you know what? I said, why not? Like, what do I have to lose? I quit my job, finished school, not going back to anything solid. I have time. I did extend my stay for another 3 weeks, but this time I wanted to make sure like I had something specific checked off of my list that I wanted to do while I was in Ethiopia, because I normally never have that much time to be there. So I connected with a local NGO. The acronym is APTA. Thankfully, it was at a really good time to meet with them because they were already planning on reaching 8 different towns. Opportunity to go with them and like see different types of communities and the kind of work that they do and what that looks like in the Afar region. So it was an exciting time for me. So before that trip, Daud told me he had feelings for me.
inti manolo maane yoktulbe werta maane hinni kol tabse kahane hadaydo winta yo sugte kahani daray warinta yo beite inti manolo maane yoktulbe werta maane hinni kol tabse kahane hadaydo winta yo sugte kahani daray warinta yo beite yalla wakahanu sono yolo mabin saituna yolo bakar mabin يوم عسامي سنين ما بين ينتي سيني كحنو
I was mind blown, because this is the homie, and the homie crossed the line out of the friend zone. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, instantly I was closed-minded to it because I was off guard, but I had to like check myself and be as transparent as possible. Like, you've been a friend and just a friend for so long, so it's not something that's crossed my mind, but let me think about it. And I know you as a friend, and that's a completely different space. So if this is something that we're gonna try and take seriously, like, I need to still now get to know you in a different capacity to know what you would be like. What do you look like as a husband? I don't know. So there's a lot of that, like, self-reflection, praying, figuring it out, talking to my mom. But I really had to think deeply, like, what is it that I need in my life that I have not yet came across, and does he fulfill those needs? And when I thought about it, it actually made sense to me. Like, it clicked. I don't know if that sounds weird to hear, but it clicked. Like, what? Like, how did I not see that in him? You know what I mean? Like, I guess we so often put people in categories, or at least I do, that because they're bound to that, you don't see anything beyond that, if that makes sense. So yeah, it was like a whole shift. And then I just couldn't wait to actually see him after that trip, to see like what our vibe is like, and the different type of conversations that we need to have, you know? So I'm like the worst at making a long story short. It's like long story longer. But anyway, when my trip was done and I was on my way back to meet him and meet the rest of his siblings for the first time, literally we were like high school kids. It was so weird. That is when that video happened, which brings me to this. I knew I wanted to marry him when, after that trip, we got to spend more time together, and I got to like really get to know him on a deeper level, like ask critical questions and his thought process on some things, or like with certain scenario deal breakers, like you have to figure out your non-negotiables, things like that. And we just aligned. Like, I was honestly the first time in my life that I felt so aligned with someone. And even if we had different perspectives on a topic, it wasn't like trying to convince someone to understand you or anything like that. It was, he came from a place of curiosity. So if I had a different perspective on something, he would be curious and want to learn about the way that I thought about it and go from there, you know what I mean? And we shared that. So it's not like, oh, why do you think this, or anything negative. It's a matter of, we both had a desire to understand each other better, and no judgment zone. And in the deeper conversations we had, like the vision that we had for our lives aligned, like in terms of how we would want our family dynamic to be, our nuclear family, and how we would want to raise a family. And religion is big for me. Like, in Islam, men and women don't enter the masjid, the mosque, in the same door. Like, it's separate entrances and a lot of separate things. So it was important to me to have a husband who loves Islam for himself and not for myself or for me, because that's what my child would be taught, you know what I mean? And it's a different experience having your child learn from their father who is passionate about their faith. So that's something that was really, really endearing to me. In general, I just felt like I knew because I didn't have any doubt. Like sometimes, at least for myself, if I was asked about marriage in the past, I would have doubts about, or red flags is another way of looking at it. Red flags of something that, oh, we would not match for this or things like that. But with him, in the knowing him prior to and then just accelerating the time we had left, I had no doubts or red flags or anything that couldn't be like just worked out through conversation, and that continued not even being face to face. Which leads to the next question. Long distance relationships are mad hard. For anyone who knows, mad hard. My voice would be louder, but you know. They're mad hard. What I mean by that is you have to have very strong trust in one another, strong communication in one another, and a clear understanding of each other's needs. By that I mean, like, I'm the kind of person that I don't need to have constant communication all the time, and I'm fine with that. But if your partner does, it's something that you have to understand and be mindful of, because it's harder to get sidetracked if you're not in the same country. So just managing and creating a balance that fits for both of you, because it's mad hard. Like, my perspective, long distance relationships require patience, extra communication, and ensuring that you're still fulfilling, I guess, each other's love languages as best as possible. So whether that's like, for example, I'll use our relationship as an example. Dawood doesn't like, he has FOMO. He'll probably not admit it, but he has FOMO, so fear of missing out. So he loves to feel like he's at least involved with things, and it does not help that he can't really see his daughter right now. So I'm constantly recording pictures, everything, to make sure he sees anything I see. So, and especially for our daughter. So if she has like new behaviors, or I don't know, new faces she makes, like, he needs to be a part of it. Or if we're going on an adventure somewhere, like driving somewhere new or something like that, like, I'll record things to make sure he feels connected to our experience, and I know that's important to him. So maintaining that it makes our relationship even stronger, because he knows that I'm doing an extra effort for him. You know what I mean? That was a long-winded answer, sorry. So in general, just making sure you have that strong foundation of trust, not an issue, communication, not an issue. Obviously, no relationship is perfect, so issues could arise, but so that's why your patience with one another has to be elevated, because you're not face to face, and your communication has to be clearer, to ensure like unnecessary arguments don't happen. You know what I mean? This question, I think it's really hard to answer. It's not a cookie cutter answer. What any woman looks for in a man is strictly based on their own needs, the vision that they see for their life and future, and what they feel matches with themselves. I'm a firm believer that whatever is written is going to happen. Like, if you told me I was gonna end up with an Afar man, I would have laughed at you 3 years ago, because but in Toronto, we all feel like we're each other's cousins, brothers, sisters, whatever. So yeah, right? All you can focus on is what you need, instead of, these days, people are just focusing on superficial things. Okay, last one. I feel like that speaks to household. Like, it depends on what you grew up seeing and what's your norm, because for me, like, out of all of my dad's siblings, he's the only person that married an Afar woman. So for me, that's not my norm. My norm is people marrying whoever they want. Like, I have half German siblings, half other Ethiopian ethnic groups, half African American. Yeah, so my family is very mix of different things. So that's not my norm, but I think that makes sense if it makes sense when you think about what you're exposed to. So if you look beyond that, I'm sure you would see a variety of different mixes within our community. But it's also how you choose to identify our community, because there are people who don't speak our language, who are not exposed to anything even outside of the country that they live in. Like, say they live in America and they've never even been outside of America. They themselves could still identify as being Afar. You know what I mean? So it depends on what you have exposure to, basically. As for the why I think it's hard, I think there is a fear of losing our language and losing some of our culture. Like, the more mixing that happens, some people might believe if your language and your culture isn't passed along to different generations, then it gets it minimizes naturally. So I think there's also a fear within the community that the more mixing that happens, the less legacy remains, if that makes sense. So in short, it starts with your family and then what you yourself allow yourself to be exposed to. If you made it to the end, if you made it to the end, thank you so much for your support and your messages and your shout outs. I appreciate it so much and hope you enjoyed this. Please feel free to leave me feedback or anything.